I had never bothered about the American elections, but back in 2021, I was shown that Trump was going to be reelected and why it was necessary as a disruptor. And the reasons were given to me. And he was a disruptor. He was necessary. So I remember when I had this vision, and it came as visions and it came as dreams to reinforce to me that he had to be reelected for a reason. I realized this, that sometimes it doesn't have to be a person who of a best character, but sometimes a person is necessary to do something. As we step into, you call it the new world.
Can I chime in on that point for a bit,
Sure,
Anand, on the disruptor? Because that really struck a chord with me. I mean, in AVPN's work, we engage with foundations and philanthropists on social investing, which could be donations or impact investing across the region, right? So they support all kinds of causes on the ground. And in that ecosystem, an organization like USAID had played a very big role in terms of the funding that comes into a whole range of countries addressing important development issues. And we know what happened to USAID. It was very suddenly shut down and all the funding vaporized. And, clearly resulting in a substantial amount of turmoil on the ground. But what we saw as a relatively positive disruptive effect of that is that it then opened up space for local supporters to step up and to take action. In certain markets or countries like Cambodia or Laos, less economically advanced, but clearly having their own community of wealth holders. What I picked up over time was that there was so much development finance coming in that a lot of these local stakeholders were just saying, we'll let them take care of it, right? It's like, first of all, there's nothing we could do to add to that. And secondly, it's well taken care of. And that for us at an ecosystem level is not a positive thing, because you do want the local stakeholders to have agency and to be involved and to actually do this work. But in some places, it was just sort of unbalanced. And then we also saw a lot of NGOs on the ground who had USAID as their sole funder, which again is another thing that we often tell the charities and the NGOs on the ground: diversify your funding sources, right? But they've gotten so used to receiving a substantial flow from a single entity, and then overnight it went away. So that was sort of a big lesson that was learned across the board.
I think the key in that is this sort of disruptor meant you had to be resourceful and figure out for yourself how are you going to look after yourself rather than keep begging for more, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So that's quite a bit of a positive turn of events, arising from despair almost at the funding being cut off. There's a lot of disturbances out there, and just looking at, there's a question here about China. There's a lot of geopolitical stuff going on. Radu, do you have a sense on what that might lead us to, all the tensions that are taking place around the world?
Hopefully not war. We are facing international relations, what you may call Cold War II. We don't always call it as such, but clearly it's a pretty tense atmosphere around two main competitors, namely US and China. Of course, we feel it at different intensity, across the world. ASEAN, from this perspective, is highly relevant for both China and the US. And I would say for us in Eastern Europe, it's more about a former great power who still wants to act like a great power aggressively. It's about Russia, and here our connection with the US is highly, highly important, whether we're also EU countries or not, right? So great power competition is key, and as a trend is here to say, there is a variety of how you can map the future depending on who's in leadership, who may be coming, having what majority, and so on. And I think one of the factors which we tend to dismiss unduly is the role of mid-powers. Middle powers have a key role to play in the future. I've read a very interesting recent report by one of the US think tanks. They also came up with the undetailed concept of swing state. So the swingers, if I can call them as such, are also very, very relevant in the future, right? Important mid-powers or pivot countries around the world, who, depending on who they play with, in which team they play, and what they do, can shape the region, can shape the world, and can also shape the dynamics in between the two largest powers. Connected with great power competition is I would say, huge progress in technology and its youth, either for let's say for peaceful means, an economic development, or for wider, more security-related stuff. And from this perspective, we're going to see as a trend more and more combination of great power competition, political security-wise, economic-wise, and the advent of technology in the future. So it's a very exciting future, but I think it's going to be a very stressful future as well. And people will be trying to look much more on the inside because you're simply overwhelmed about what you see on the outside.
Let's imagine that there's a vast ocean. Some people are scooting across this vast ocean on a very fancy yacht. Some people are on a little rowing boat, and others are lying on a banana leaf. Well, the guy on the super fast yacht is going to get places faster, but where the heck is he going in this ocean of infinity? Where's the end of infinity? We cannot understand that. And the guy in the rowing boat, he's going to go a bit slower, and it's going to seem to him that it'll take longer for him to get there. Where is he going, or she? And the person on the banana boat is probably in a better position because they're just lying there slowly drifting under the stars, having a little bit of time to think about, I'm not going very far, but actually I'm just rocking around and looking at this appearance around me. Now take away all those methods of transportation. Now I'm speaking metaphorically here, right? And then boom, you are actually in the ocean itself. So what carries us, our consciousness, is actually separating us from our reality as it really is.
So best case scenario, in short, peace, using technology for good, making sure we actually develop the world further. So I trust a lot the future of the developing world. Worst case scenario, World War III. Us being overwhelmed by technology and humanity going crazy.
So within
worst case.
the context of my work, which is engaging the group of wealth holders, and Kannan, you mentioned 300,000 millionaires earlier. So best case would be we're able to mobilize a substantial percentage of this group towards embarking on their own socially entrepreneurial journeys. Worst case would be if that group checks out and they feel that they can't catch up to what Bill Gates is doing or other prominent billionaires are doing around the world, it's too difficult, it's too complicated, they'd rather just get into their own bubble and live their lives pretending that everything else is not happening.
The best case is for us to be able to focus on our evolution. It's very, very important point is how AI is moving in leaps and bounds. And if we just focus on, this is for those who are in the investments, there's such a flood of this AI boom that's happening right now, and everybody's going into it. But is everybody going into our evolution, our human technology that we contain within ourselves, our DNA, is it evolving as quickly or faster? So the best case scenario is when we evolve as a human technology, okay, and we focus on that, every human focusing on that, that is the best case. And the worst case scenario is when we lose our ability to direct and we lose control. And AI, which is not a bad technology, it is a divine technology in some aspect because it helps us free us. I've been able to free myself from so much. But when we lose and we stop using our creativity, and we are inherently creative beings, and we use less and less of it, and lead into our own devolution.
When we learn the marvelous, marvelous, marvelous capacity of our mind and our spirit to have the most incredible experience on this earth and to create the most marvelous things that we could ever believe or even not even conceive of now. And we can do that through our own development and through using the methods that have already been written down for us of how to evolve our consciousness into to a standard that will allow us to do this, then we would see an earth which we would not even believe is possible today. And the worst case is, as when you said the little voice is always prevailing. Well, unfortunately, the little voice will prevail until there's enough suffering to force that little voice to turn inward and to find these methods to awaken to what the mind and the spirit is actually capable of. And of course, suffering may lead to just incredible trauma on this planet, which unfortunately we're seeing the beginning, well, not beginning, it's been here all along, but the magnification and amplification of in these very present times. So let's pray for people to go the other way.
Quite a mix of perspectives coming through. If we'd looked at the future today when we were growing up, say 40, 50 years ago, it would have been difficult to imagine it, right? And so things have accelerated. Things have become a lot more complicated, a lot more complex. And the arrival of social media and instant communication has shortened a lot of things as well. So where we go from here is going to be exponentially quicker. So the future is still about your imagination. It's still about applying it. It's still about trying to realize it. And it's still about trying to live, live the best life you possibly can for yourself, for your family, for your community, for the nation, for the planet. So I think there are so many factors that come into play for this, and we have to open ourselves to all the influences out there and try and reach out and connect with whatever we can for the betterment of society and for the future. Hopefully, there will be enough of a planet after all this current spate of skirmishes sort of settle down and some sort of normalcy returns. But I think technology will still keep pushing ahead and developing new things for us to enjoy and benefit from.